Alright, this project's going to cover the Apache Flume installation, which is going to go on top of Apache Hadoop. The use case here is for Twitter streaming data. Apache Flume is going to connect to Twitter and stream data directly into HDFS as text. This text will then be operated on by Apache Pig to create a word count file. That word count file will then be used in Tableau to create a word cloud visualization. The visualization will be based on hashtags that people have used while the Apache Flume was capturing the Twitter streaming data. So in the short window that the stream connection is open, the Apache Flume data is manipulated and created into a word cloud, so you can see the general discussion occurring on Twitter as it happened. So, overview, what is Apache Flume, purpose and other use cases, what software is required, compatibility, where to find documentation and help, flume.apache.org. This is backwards here. It should be flume.apache.org. And then other helpful sources. Apache Flume is a horizontal scaling open source software package for configuration of streaming data and batch data. Some use cases basically collect data from a variety of sources, whether they're log files or streaming data from web servers, or when there's a need to handle high volume, high velocity data. Also, you got online data analytics. It could be used for gathering data from a range of sources to send to multiple destinations simultaneously. So some use cases I've read about online is you might have Apache Flume monitoring web servers around the world and looking at real-time info about how users are navigating websites. For instance, like users may be navigating a website and clicking links. Those clicks are sent as log files and captured by Apache Flume to be stored in Apache Hadoop HDFS to then do some analytics on to find out, I don't know, maybe in real time you want to change the website, what's being presented to the user based on how users are clicking on the website. Or maybe maybe users are navigating a website and through some means you're detecting that certain links aren't being utilized. Maybe they're not being presented to the viewer in such a way that they'll actually navigate through those links. So that's some use cases that I've seen. Another use case that I read about is, Twitter could be using Apache Flume to monitor, trending topics in real time and updating their trending page based on what tweets are actually coming in real time. So use cases in that scenario. You could be looking at multiple sources in parallel at the same time and aggregating all that data. So Flume is very configurable in that sense that you can network, the sources as needed. You could have multiple sources in parallel. You can feed data from one source to another. Flume, like I said, is highly configurable in that sense. here's a basic Flume agent architecture. Here you have a source, Twitter, for instance, right? The channel is where the data is being stored in the short term. In this case, presented here, this channel is computer memory. But other channels, I believe, are file structures. You can store it in a file to be read from later. But so in this case, Twitter is the source. It's going to be stored in RAM and held in RAM until it's dispersed into HDFS. The sink being HDFS. As I was discussing earlier, you can have different architectures. You have multiple agents in parallel. Each could be looking at a separate data source or looking from different elements, different types of data from the same data source, but they're represented in this visualization as different agents. And then these agents are all feeding a fourth agent, which is aggregating all that data and sending it all to HDFS. So the architecture that is set up in Flume is totally configurable. Here we're going to be using Apache Flume 1.9.0, which is going to be compatible with Apache Hadoop 3.31. This is a typo here. It should be a flume.apache.org. Another helpful source was Dataflare, which I'll open up right here, switch over. So this is Dataflare, and here they have lots of information that goes into all kind of detail, just as the Apache Flume documentation does. Documentation gives you let's see, user guide, gives you system requirements, memory, disk space, right? So they give you lots of examples for configuring agents. An agent is consisting of this architecture here: a source, a channel, and a sink. You know what Flume is going to connect to for a source, how that data is going to be handled in the short term, and then the ultimate sink for the data. So sources for documentation, you got the Flume user guide, flumeapache.org, or you got other websites, like I said, Dataflare. YouTube is also helpful. So as part of this installation, you need to download Apache Flume version 1.9.0, set up a bash shell environment so that the environment variables are carried in the shell, and you don't have to add a bunch of environment variables to the base shell. Part of this exercise, Twitter, you have to navigate to the Twitter website and obtain the Twitter API keys. There's 4 keys that are required for Flume. And then in addition to that, part of the installation exercise would be to create a Twitter conf file. The issue here is we're going to use Flume on the command line to reference a particular configuration file for connecting to the Twitter API. That configuration file will be called in the command line statement. So yeah, download from flumeapache.org, version 1.9.0, the binaries, not the source one. Basically, once that's downloaded to the downloads directory, you want to navigate to user local Hadoop, where the other projects are installed along with Hadoop. You want to use the tar command to extract that download, and it's going to create a new directory. Basically, it's going to say Apache Flume 1.9.0-bin. That's going to be the new directory with the whole Apache Flume file set in there. And let's see. So for instance, yeah, you would have once that command is run in this directory, the tar command to extract the downloaded file from the downloads directory. You'll have a new folder here, Apache Flume 1.9.0-bin, and then from there, you get a bunch of templates that come with the download. None are used. This one right here, I was playing around with it, but actually it's all commented out, right? So you get this template that you can then, copy and delete the word template, and if you need to configure anything, you could. However, for this installation, it's not needed. So none of these files they're all just templates, right? They're not being read. The Twitter conf is what's going to be created. I have the template here, right? Because the Twitter conf file is actually going to accept the Twitter API keys, and I can't show those on the video. So those keys will have to be obtained by you when you download the installation and connect to Twitter. But I'll show where to get the keys at. But I'll put up the template file later in the discussion. So like I said, you want to go to you want to navigate to user local Hadoop, and then once you're in that location, you want to extract from downloads the Apache Flume. Once that's extracted, it's basically installed. So what I'd want to do next is get to the home directory, cd tilde to reach the home directory, create a new bash profile with the vi command. I named mine profile 2, and then you want to add the following text to the profile. The important part here is the Apache the Flume home path. You got export Flume home, and then in addition to that, you're going to append on here Flume home /bin. But the easy thing to do would just be to copy all this text, drop it in a profile. And I think I have an example. Yeah. This is the Bash 2 Bash profile 2 that I had in the PowerPoint PDF. There are some other exports in here that are commented out. I erased them from the PDF because it's not necessary to show them. But in my file, they're still there. It's for other projects, Pig, Hive, and then I had commented out this whole string of path. When this version just has the Flume shown right here. So you'd install, and then next step, create your bash shell to operate from. The next step is going to be obtain the API keys from Twitter, developer.twitter.com. Go to the developer portal. You're going to create a project in the portal. There'll be a button for creating a new project. When you create a project, you're going to have to answer a bunch of questions to receive permission from Twitter to be able for them to issue you the keys. And the kind of questions they ask you are, what's the intended use of this data? What is your role? Are you a student? Are you a corporation? I guess they want to know all that for liability reasons. They want to know how their data is being used. I just put, to create this link, I put student, to connect using Flume to connect to Twitter API for a test case. They will, I think they will ask you if you want to tweet, if you want to actually send tweets out, which for this case, I just put read only. I'm only receiving tweets. I'm not trying to issue tweets through Flume. So once the project's created, you'll have it named here. It'll show up under your projects and apps. You want to navigate, click the project, click keys and tokens, and then download your two consumer keys, the API, which is the API key and the API secret key, and then you want to download the two or copy the two access tokens. It'll be an access token and an access token secret. Store those away in a safe location so nobody has access to them. We're going to use them in the Twitter comp file. Right, so next we're going to create the Twitter comp file. It'll be used by the Flume Twitter source agent. 4 keys, API key, API secret, access token, access secret. So to create that file, we want to navigate to user local Hadoop, Apache Flume, conf. Once we're in that location, I'm going to use the VI command to create the twitter.conf file. and then copy this text on the next slide to create the source, channel, and sync for the API streaming. So this is the text that will be used in the Twitter conf file. This is the agent called Twitter agent. A couple things to note about this configuration file. The first is, while there is a keywords that could be specified. For instance, I used news. Reading around the internet about this this connection. So this connection is based on this Twitter source here, right? So in the flume.apache.org user manual, it talks about this this Flume source Twitter source, and this this source through Apache Flume is called the Twitter 1% fire hose. And they said the documentation says it's experimental, and that its stability, or not its stability, they said it's experimental, and that its features could change significantly between minor revisions. So it's labeled as experimental on the documentation page, but it works. But one thing about it is this keywords, Twitter keywords, does not work. So what happens is when you open up the connection, no matter what keyword you specify, you will receive tweets from all around the world about all topics. So tweets just pour in into HDFS, and there's no context as to, you know, where in the world they're from or what the subject matter is. It's just all tweets. And I guess being the 1% fire hose is, it's not every single tweet. It's a subset. You're receiving some of the tweets, but when you open a connection, you'll see that data starts pouring in, and I don't suggest leaving the connection open for a long period of time unless you have a lot of storage space. So what else to note about this configuration file? This is where you want to store your HDFS, your Flume data coming from Twitter in HDFS. The data is going to be in text format. There's other formats. I saw JSON as a format you could use. However, for what I was doing in this project is I just wanted to receive the raw data from Twitter in text, and then use that data, use Apache Pig to operate on that data to do a word count. From that word count, send that data over to Tableau and build a word cloud of hashtags. So that was my intent in this project. But also, source is Twitter. In terms of diagram shown earlier, you have sources, channels, and syncs. Source is Twitter. Channels is memchannel. Memchannel meaning memory. It's going to use RAM to store the data as it's streaming, and once the RAM fills up, as declared down here, that will then be pushed to HDFS. So you declare what the memchannel capacity is, memchannel type, memory, transaction capacity. These are just values I played with to get it to work correctly. They work for me. And then once the Twitter conf file is created, we can open a connection to the Twitter API, receive live tweets. Before doing that, you have to make sure HDFS is online. You got your HDFS commands, start Apache Hadoop, HDFS. Once that's online, then you could start Flume Twitter stream connection on the command line. The command line is going to be this Flume NG. That NG is the newest Flume version. There's an OG, that's an older version. You're going to say agent. You're going to specify a file. That file is a configuration file. The reason why there's conf before, because I was calling this command from the Apache Flume directory, not the conf directory. So conf/TwitterConf is going to be the file, the configuration we're going to specify at runtime to connect to the Twitter API. And then the name is Twitter agent as specified in the conf file, Twitter agent. Then next we'll look at raw data in HDFS from Twitter. That raw data is then used by Apache Pig to create a word count file. That word count file is fed to Tableau to build a word cloud. And this is an example word cloud. Colors aren't very bold, but it's from around the world. You know, all different hashtags, subject matters, right? You got, I see Fortnite here. You just see Raider Nation, Fortnite Chapter 3, Black Lives Matter. Just different contexts of people discussing things on Twitter. Alright, so with that, let's switch back over to Linux. So this was the bash file that was to be created in the home directory. And this was, this is the bash file. Close terminal. That's some old data runs from Flume. This was TwitterConf. TwitterConf directory showing this is a file we're going to call. And this is the example file of the TwitterConf in Linux. Obviously, this is a template, right? I don't have the consumer key. I don't have the API keys filled in here because I don't want to show them in a video. But the real conf file I'm going to call on the command line. So what you do is drop in the command line. HDFS is already online. When I execute this command, it will open up the connection. Data will start streaming in to HDFS. And like I said, you don't want to have the connection open very long. Start filling up your hard drive. Oh wow. Let's see. Oh, got to be in the bash shell. So all right, this should open a connection. So the logs pop up. Like I said, depending on what your use case is, even though, uh, as described here, you can't specify keywords, you could certainly use another service like MapReduce or Apache Pig or another service to read through the data. Even though it generates a lot of extraneous data that you're not interested in, you can still read through the data and pull out what you're looking for. Also, I did see online that people point to GitHub repositories saying they have different Twitter sources or different configurations that allow you to specify keywords or country of origin, or there's all kind of specifications you could put into the file to Flume to have it pluck the data you want out of Twitter. So to cancel this and close the connection, the easiest thing to do is just do Control-C. That'll close the Flume connection to the Twitter API, and you get your command line back. And from here, we can go to HDFS. Oh. So these are the files right here that were just created just a moment ago. And then we could take a look at, see what kind of data we collected. It's going to be raw text in the form of tweets, and there's going to be headers and stuff in these files coming from Twitter. So let's take a look. Let's see, 16, unlock 16, 39, 37, 34, 27, 74, 7. And then we'll do, we'll just open it. So scrolling up, let's see what we got here. Anything interesting? You'll see different languages. You see web links in here, people posting web links, emojis. You see it all in here. You filled my life with happiness. I love you so much. With a web link. Yeah, just a bunch of raw data from Twitter that we stream for just a few seconds, and that's just one file. And yeah, so in the project, next I would do Apache Pig. Let's see. Let me flip back to the pig script I used for this project was basically take the data. I was looking for. My intent was to look for officers injured, officers trying to see if I could capture, discussions about officers being injured or shot or killed on Twitter, but I can't the Flume connection. I can't specify subject content, so I had a file structure with officer in it or news. Anyway, so use the pig script below to create a word count and then store that in Twitter officer pig. Officer being the file, the HDFS. The Flume would store, Apache Flume would store raw data into the folder called officer, and then I would then read the officer folder and then operate on that and create a word count and store that in pig so that I could keep my files separated. So that's the script that was used. We can go take a look at that. So you're seeing a string of text and then a count. Quite messy. Lots of different languages. Because there's just so much that's streaming into Twitter, and there's no filter on it. Anyway, so that pig script is run to parse all that and count it, and then that counted file is then sent to Tableau to create a word cloud visualization. And let's see, do I have Tableau up? Start Tableau. So going to Tableau real quick. This is part of a parallel project I was doing, looking at FBI data where officers were injured, plotting, what year, where they were injured, what state, how many were injured. This is a different view showing you how they were injured. But part of the Twitter feed here was to use Flume to capture news data out of Twitter, and I built some word clouds from that news data. It's showing you the frequency of the hashtags. You got like Fortnite, Tiger Gang. Some of this stuff I don't know what the reference is to. We got Raider Nation. There's a second visualization. But yeah, so connect to the Twitter API. Brought that data into HDFS as raw text. Then use Pig to parse it and create a word count. That word count is then brought into Tableau as a data source. Text file. It just literally has text and a count. That count is then let's see. Let me go to that count is then parsed by regular expression. Yeah, regular expression is used. Let's see, edit. Yeah, so this is the regular expression that was used. Take column F1, which is the words. Anything that starts with hashtag A to Z, lowercase a to Z, 0 through 9. Filter out anything but those, which just leaves hashtags. And that's how I created the visualization, porting that data directly from Twitter into HDFS through Pig into Tableau, and then a regular expression to create basically the discussions that are going on worldwide on Twitter. All right, thank you.